You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. Pleased to have you with us on the show. Let me introduce our guest, and we will wade in and talk politics big time for the next 30 minutes. Steve Gill, attorney, conservative television and radio analyst. Right next to him, Jasper Hendricks, Democratic strategist, current chair of the Metro Fair Board. Victoria Pierce back with us, Republican Party activist. And Bruce Berry, progressive, Vanderbilt professor, Tennessee Lookout columnist. Did I miss anything?
You missed nothing.
All right. We are
well,
there.
you missed many things. We don't have time.
Can't read the whole CV because it's too long for the show. Guys, let's wade in. A couple days ago, Mayor O'Connell delivered his State of Metro address, his second. Things have been better, things have been worse. The city is losing roughly an estimate of $200 million from the Trump administration, and they're trying to make sure that we can make ends meet. One of the things that we've talked about on the show in recent weeks is the new appraisals in Nashville, and that is something that where the tax assessor goes around and decides what your property is worth. On average, since 2001, they've increased 45%. Bruce, you've got a home in Nashville. Yours went up even more. What, I guess, is the long and short on the property tax end? People are going to be paying more.
Well, of course, it's that complicated thing where the property taxes on average are up across the county. The state law requires that the tax rate be lowered in order to equalize the outcome. But then the mayor and his new budget steps in with the possibility, and in fact the reality, of proposing a tax increase over that new lowered equalized rate. And it looks like it's up about 26%, if that number is right. So if your property were assessed at an average level of increase in the county, your property tax would be the same except for this increase, which would then bring it up perhaps 26%.
Sure.
So it's a property tax increase, and that was expected. I mean,
the mayor had hinted this is going to happen.
Yes, and so the argument going forward will be, is it too big, and does it have to be as large as it is, and is it worth it? And he made a bunch of arguments in his State of Metro speech about what the revenue sort of problems are having to do with with the Trump administration that you mentioned, and also
the cost of everything,
and also a bunch of programs, especially in education, that are sunsetted from COVID funds, and so it's a complicated revenue picture.
That's one of those deals. Whenever you get money from the federal government from any kind of a program, then a couple of years you're going to have to pay for it.
Right.
We got a lot of money during COVID. Victoria,
it's absolutely too high. Let's just face the facts. It is. I mean, I think people are going to be outraged by this.
I think they already are.
I am, and I rent, so I don't even.
It'll be passed along.
You're going to be paying it too,
exactly.
right?
And it's apparently not going downhill. It just keeps going uphill from here. But I think
in my lifetime, yes.
I just think it's. I think this is outrageous, and I understand that crime is down and there's more Metro police and yada yada yada. I just still think this is ridiculous how extremely high it increased. So I think Metro needs to stand up and not let this pass.
Well, don't be shy. Tell us what you think. We'll work our way around the table. Steve, you live in Nashville too, and this wasn't unexpected. And then the mayor's right. I mean, when he buys light bulbs, it costs him more. When he pays police officer, it costs him more. Your thoughts on the budget overall? $38.8 billion.
Yeah, I think Victoria's right. This is going to cause sticker shock. And whether or not it needs to go up some.
$3.8 billion, forgive me, let me clean that up.
Yes.
$3.8 billion, yes.
Everything does cost more, so you can expect that there's going to be an increase, but this is going to be sticker shock. Politically, I think the Metro Council members have to beware, because you can drive a good argument against a tax increase. Again, it's emotional, it's economic, and I don't think that Republicans have a shot to start picking off a lot of council seats.
Not in this town.
But you didn't have, 20 years ago, Democrats controlled the State House, the State Senate. You now have Republican supermajorities in the State House and State Senate. And what was the linchpin of that was the state income tax battle. That's what flipped everything in Tennessee from Democrat control to supermajorities of Republicans. Again, I don't think Republicans take over control of the
You were in talk
Metro
radio
Council.
on the daily back then. I remember you and I being on the steps of the Capitol. Yes, and I remember the bullhorns and everything. Steve and I really became friends about 30 years ago during that.
The horn honkers.
Yeah.
So again, they may be able to pick up some seats in Metro Council, and that's where people will have to watch out for their seats. That may be what moves some votes. But again, it's the kind of thing that becomes a trickle. Nashville's not going to become red anytime soon, but you could see some council members losing their seats.
What do you think about that argument? Think that it could make some people vulnerable?
No, absolutely not. Because people love living in Nashville. People want the services in Nashville. People want what Nashville has become. And but some people need to remember what Nashville was. And until Mayor Cooper came in, we didn't even have a Department of Housing. We didn't have a Department of Transportation. We didn't have all those things that we need in order for the next steps of, for Nashville to be the city that is truly open and welcoming to everyone and accessible. And so, you want people out of Brookmead Park, right? You want the home, which means you want to get rid of homelessness. Well, how do you expect that to happen? It's going to be on our metro. It costs money. And so we want our streets. We want police. We want police. We want all of these things. And we also have to understand that, yes, there is a cost and there's an increased cost to it. But then with the instability that is being caused right now in Washington, where we don't know what federal dollars we actually are going to receive that we have actually been promised.
Couple of $100 million in there.
And they're still not done. We have to wait. And so we have to wait. And a lot of our roads actually the state are over some of these streets that are in disrepair.
You mentioned the roads, and I haven't been hired by anybody to stop this, but I do a mail piece showing pictures of potholes and putting a dollar figure on every one of them. Send that out and say, what have you done with our money, Mayor?
Well, you got to figure out, are you talking about the state-run streets?
I don't think it was
the streets or the
I've
ones
got to
that
squeeze in a break, but let's talk
Metro.
about this on the other side. You're watching Nashville in Focus, and the fun continues right after this.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
We're going to pick up the conversation where we left off, but I just realized I'm part of the problem. I apparently stole this from the mayor's office. It's one of those choose how you move pens. I apologize to the taxpayers of Nashville that I walked. That I have apparently absconded with a pen.
At least you got it before a tariff was able to
I know.
Let me just point out that
Sure.
one point. And Jasper's exactly right. If you can say this road is this and this is this, but taxes and politics are emotional. And if I'm getting hit by potholes and somebody does an effective job of saying, where's the pothole money gone, Mayor? You're raising my taxes, but you can't fill potholes. That's going to be a good political issue, whether or not you can distinguish between this road or that road or not.
I did think what did he say, 14,000 potholes or something since the beginning of
That's
the
what I'm
year?
saying. So
they've been pretty busy.
Yeah, and I think if you use that argument, then you're going to be banking on the fact that people are going to forget that our state Department of Transportation is 10 years behind. In what they've promised to give people.
Or 30.
So,
But when they raised the gas
30.
tax under Haslam, they said they were going to use all that billions of dollars to fix that, and they haven't.
That's how Republicans, you got to take it up with your party.
One of the things that's happened is our cars get better gas mileage, so we're not selling as much gas. And then you've got electric cars, and that has not been as fruitful, I think, as they hoped.
So in Congress, though, just this past week in Congress, the transportation part of the budget was being debated, and in the markup, they're actually proposing where states can now tax EVs and hybrids, and I think the tax.
Because they use the roads
it was like $250. I think they'll be able to try to make up for some of that. But it's in markup, and we got to wait for Congress to do all of their stuff.
But maybe some relief. Maybe some relief.
And it's been a while, but during that Haslam, fuel tax increase, they gave a multi-million-dollar tax break to FedEx's fuel tax while the head of FedEx was on Haslam's board of directors at Pilot. So that thing was funky from the beginning.
From the jump. Guys, let's switch topics now. Let's go to renewed push for license plate reading cameras. A couple of days ago on the news, we were talking with Metro Councilwoman Courtney Johnston, who was pointing the finger at the mayor, saying he's holding up this thing. I spoke to him on Friday and said, hey, why was that not in your budget? I know you've given voice to you're in favor of this. And the answer, the long and short of it is, the will in his mind is not on Metro Council to approve this thing. They're pointing fingers at him, but he knows the votes aren't there on Metro Council. Remember the Fusis vote? I mean, gosh, they barely got that thing passed on the second time.
Well, on the license plate readers, I think it's important to realize, we were just talking about the city budget and all of that. It's not really a budgetary issue. When the council in 2023 said, okay, proceed with a full rollout of a license plate reader program, the city did an RFP and basically figured out that the full rollout they had in mind would cost about $4 million.
Not that much on the grand scheme.
I did the math this afternoon. It is less than 0.2% of the city's budget of $3.8 billion. So it's obviously not a budgetary choice, it's a political choice.
Yes.
And it's also important to remember that the council that said, okay, let's do this thing was the last council, but before O'Connell was elected, under Cooper. So when Mayor O'Connell says, well, there may not be the support on the council for this, he's obviously talking about the current council. And it's a political decision. And it's also framed a little bit, obviously, along with the FUSIS thing, by what's going on in Washington.
Well, they say they don't trust.
By concerns, right, that they don't trust the Trump administration Justice Department to responsibly, potentially watch over.
They don't trust them to
try
follow the law.
And try to collect some of this data. And one way to address that is to not collect the data at all. Personally, I think that at some point we will have license plate readers. Even liberal civil libertarian groups understand that these things are kind of inevitable.
Now, Juliet's carrying us right now. They catch everybody.
Well, I saw a statistic.
They have them.
I saw a statistic that if you look at all cities in the country that are over 500,000 population, something like 80% have some version of this. And so it is technology that it's inevitable. Obviously, Mayor O'Connell is deciding politically this is not the right moment to do this.
Is the fear overblown that the Trump administration would misuse this?
Absolutely. Look, you got Mayor O'Connell's going to blame Trump for the budget increase, even though we haven't seen a budget yet, even though some of the stuff that's being cut was the fraud, the waste, and the abuse, and now he's going to blame it on the whole food system. He's going to be the boogeyman that the mayor's going to bring up all the time, whether it's real or not.
Well, that boogeyman got the biggest applause at the State of Metro speech, so it's,
Oh, when he
Right.
talked, yes.
And I think I think we need to think about also that maybe there's some other ways to use to sort of deter crime or to catch criminals and still use license plate readers, because there are places in the city that are using license plate readers. Now, if you're riding,
some neighborhoods are sort of
if you're
doing their own.
riding past parking lots, they have big signs up now saying that they are using license plate readers. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what type of partnership can be developed with those license plate readers that are already in place, and maybe seeing if that could be a way to sort of deter crime without him actually, using his political capital or using political capital to get it through council.
Like, get Victoria a bite before we move on.
I'm just saying, if it's already happening in other regions and other cities, I mean, it's going to happen in Nashville. So I don't know why there's such a holdup on this. It's really the
there's
fact.
parking garages in Nashville that charge you based upon the license plate
Right,
reader
so
catching you as
if
you
it's
drive.
already active,
I have had that happen.
what's the point? Right.
And they have big signs up now says we use
License plate readers. Right. So I don't know why this is a holdup.
Well, it's not the money. Bruce was right in terms of the dollars and cents
It's political capital. He
But
doesn't
there
have
is
the
a
votes.
new
He's not
council
allowed to
here,
vote
and
for
some of them don't trust the Trump administration. Just wanted to
And
give you guys an update on.
And they have very much good reason not to.
Where the administration is on that.
Right.
And don't read anything into my blue tie. It just matched the shirt. We will be right back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
New topic, former Middle Tennessee congressional candidate Robbie Starbucks is suing Meta, the Facebook giant, over defamation because apparently its AI product put public that he had been charged with a crime in connection with the January 6th attack. Steve, would you like to represent him in this case? I'm thinking there could be a nice little piece for the attorney.
I don't think there's a big recovery there. And part of that is I'm not sure how you hurt Robbie's reputation. I mean, this is a guy who was doing sexually explicit rap videos in LA before he came here and repainted himself as some Christian conservative. So I'm not sure what reputation he's going to be able to show has been harmed by a brief claim that he was part of the January 6th deal.
Bruce, your thoughts?
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I do know enough about defamation law to know that, right, as Steve suggests, you have to be able to show harm to prevail in such a suit. I think it actually is, though, a very interesting lawsuit that's worth watching, because what he's arguing is that he was defamed by AI. And I've read the lawsuit, and it is true that he was pointing out for months that there were factually false things that Meta's AI was saying about him, and they refused to correct it. And of course, if you regard him as a public figure, the defamation law says that the defamation,
the bar is higher.
The bar is higher. It has to be.
And can you show intent in
It
AI?
has to be intent and malice. But you can. But in these lawsuits,
I would argue he's not a public figure.
You often prove intent by showing that you asked for it to be changed, and the alleged defamer didn't do that, and that's the case here. So I think that First Amendment types who think about defamation law in relation to the First Amendment are looking at this lawsuit and saying, this is kind of an interesting one worth watching, although Steve's point that if you can't show harm, then the lawsuit won't ultimately have legs legally.
Interesting, though, is he a public figure or not? Because, he really was quiet for a bit after the Republican Party said, you don't have your bona fides, you can't run. But then he took up the DEI argument and forced a lot of big companies to change their policies. I think he's certainly increasingly popular in Republican circles. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think he has a big presence, especially on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. So I do think that it's very interesting. I think it is interesting watching this whole lawsuit pan out because, he first reached out to management of Meta. Then he reached out to and he started climbing up with zero response. And so I think the fact that this has been
We've all had that experience.
Right,
they've taken over my page, please give it back to me, and they won't even respond.
Well, and I think during COVID, lots of people's, pages were shut down for XYZ. So I think the fact that this is being shown and broadcast, I think the transparency is good for especially big tech. Like, let's put a filter on this. You can't, come up with your own agenda and portray people a certain way if it's not true. So I think it's interesting to watch.
You got to wonder, could he recover? Because whatever you think about his reputation, if you said I was part of something that I was not, you owe me something.
We have a person that tells lies and exaggerated truths on
now,
social media all the time, and nothing has happened, right? So, I don't see how he can get away from, how he can recover from this, recover with this,
money.
And this money.
And I don't know that that's his end game.
Right. No, it always is about money. Because you got to think
that's
about
how
it.
you teach somebody
His going up against DEI, and these companies and that DEI policies were really all about money, and it was really, let's see how much we can pay him to keep him off of us, because they thought that the tide was shifting, in a way after the election, but now they're starting to see people who actually do believe in DEI and believe that these companies should keep it is actually more harmful if you go against that.
And I think he's going to have a hard time claiming, to your point, that he's not a public figure. There is nobody more aggressive in saying, hey, look at me, than Robbie Starbucks.
Right.
You make a
and
good
if you're
point.
doing that, how are you not a public figure when you're constantly telling the public, hey, here's what I'm doing, pay attention.
I hope to have
read my
Robbie as
stuff.
a guest on the show in the not too distant future. Let's take a quick break. The conversation continues right after this.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
In our final segment, I want to talk about something that was really controversial in the last legislative session, but in the end didn't pass, and that is a bill that would require school districts across the state to verify the citizenship of their young people. I was talking with a state senator the other day who voted against this thing, and he thinks they're going to bring it back. Jasper, your thoughts? It's one of those things. I think there seem to be a political will.
I believe they absolutely will try to bring it back. Along with a few other bad pieces of legislation, and so it really is the end objective. Remember, I was talking about this maybe the last show or a few shows ago, where I felt that they needed to take a pause and a reset because they were throwing everything all at one time. And gosh, we weren't even 100 days into his presidency, and they wanted to get all of the agenda passed through at one time, and you still have 3.5 years.
Yeah, there was another bill like the 72 hours for illegals to leave the country. That was another one of those bills trying to follow the Trump agenda.
So you have some time to do this, and so maybe it was too much all at one time, and it proved to be too much that they can handle at one time. With all the other stuff that all the other bad things they were doing.
People wanted to talk about it and make sure they got it right.
Well,
but you think they'll bring it back?
Well, let's remember also that a big purpose of that bill, the education one, was to try and tee up a lawsuit.
To create a lawsuit,
to try and challenge this Plyler decision from the early 80s that says that, you can't deny education.
They're hoping a new court might rule
status.
differently.
And so if the goal is not so much to actually do the thing the bill does, but to tee up the lawsuit and the constitutional challenge, I guess that goal will still exist next year, unless, of course, some other state tees up that lawsuit for them. The other thing I would say about bills like this coming back is I agree that some will want to try, but a lot changes in a year, and sometimes these bad bills that go away do kind of
Lose steam.
die a natural death because
And you're
because
moving
things
into
have
an
changed.
election year.
You're
Senate-
moving
Correct.
into an election year.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so important.
You don't
The
think
great
this will be an
irony-
election topic?
The great
Oh, really?
irony of this, though, is that you're right. They're trying to create a lawsuit. But the real disparity between the House and Senate version is mandatory or optional.
Right. That's right.
And they're not willing to fund the defense of the lawsuit that comes if you make it mandatory. So they're looking for a lawsuit, but they're saying, oh, counties, you're on your own.
If you get sued,
If
you have to
get
tote the
sued.
note. Yeah.
But what do you think the election year, Steve, the fact that it is the start of a midterm election year, what does that do to this?
I think a lot of that depends, and I don't want to bring up the boogeyman, Donald Trump. How is he doing politically
At
in
the
a
start
year
of 2026,
versus
yeah.
where he is now?
Victoria, you got to give you a chance to get in on that before we do
Well,
anything
then
else.
jumping alongside Steve, I mean, the way that Trump's running right now, I mean, he's getting stuff done quickly and efficiently. So I think, yeah, in 2026, who knows what could happen? I do think this will get brought back up. So
And
I'm
just for the
excited to see.
record, it has passed the Tennessee Senate, so they're sort of halfway there. As I understand it, the House could take it back up, and you don't have to go back to the Senate, except to marry the two bills. And to Steve's point, the Senate bill said you have to do it.
Yes. And so again, we'll see it, and so we'll see how quick and efficient things that right now cost them more money. So I don't know how quick and efficient they're actually going to see, but
And as you
come
pointed out a couple of
January-
weeks ago, we don't know how many illegal alien students are in the classrooms.
Right.
So you need to define who you're trying to get rid of before you start getting rid of people.
Except we all know about the planes that have been landing in Chattanooga, all over the, all
how
over
many kids do
Tennessee.
they have?
Exactly, that is what we don't know. But they are landing here, and that is an issue. So
But what does that have to do with education, though?
that has to do with illegal immigrants being in schools. I mean, I think that is an issue.
Well, she's saying
Well,
some of them
plain
are
language.
getting off and going to our schools.
Right.
No, so it doesn't happen like that.
I got to
And
leave it
think that's
there.
misinformation.
I've got 5
Like,
seconds to
just
say
like-
goodbye. We're going to continue the conversation. We'll see you guys next week.